Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to a brand new Rave Diaries and Tower Block Tales. The second one that I'm doing on location. The first one being the one that I did on the Gascoigne estate a little while ago. But today we're in East London, we're in Bow. But before we go anywhere, I have to always say thank you to everyone that's been watching the channel. All the likes, comments and subscribes are much appreciated. And hopefully this will be another one that ignite some flames for some of the old Kool FM crew, especially that played at this studio in the day, but also loads of you lot that watch these things played on pirate radio as well. So you're all going to have versions of these stories, I know. So yeah, big up the commenting crew. So where are we today? Let me turn this round. I'm actually gutted because I thought I was going to drive straight in here. So basically, when you go through here, I'll tell you where we are in a minute. You used to be able to drive through this gate here, but there's a massive skip outside now. Go down that road there, just that you can see at the bottom there, it turns to the right. When you follow that round to the right, this building here, yeah, one of the rooms in here was Kool FM studio at Bromley By Bow. So let me turn this back round. Where we are, we're just behind Bromley By Bow station's just over there. So you go around the back and it's an industrial estate. And this place here, it used to be called Mixup, which is a very unfortunate name to call your concrete company, but obviously it's still a concrete company. I just don't think it's called Mixup. I think it's just called Mixit now. But and then we was opposite here, but all this building is derelict now, and as you can see, like, you can't get in there. So right, let me turn this round and I'll tell you the story. Yeah, so right, so that's where we're at today. We're in Bromley By Bow in East London, which I think comes under the postcode E3, but don't hold me to that. I get, it's not E3, don't. Anyway, and Cool. Let me a bit of history on Kool FM first for me. Anyone who knows me well enough or listens to the show, whatever, would know that Kool was the thing that inspired me more than any DJ or MC or label. You know, Kool FM was my thing. Pirate radio was my love, and Kool FM was the thing that I loved the most. So I aspired to be like everyone on Kool, all of them. I wanted to be around them. I wanted to be on Kool. I wanted to be Eastman's mate. I wanted to be, you know what I mean, do a back-to-back with Brocky, have flipping Moose on the mic. All the things that have happened in my life, I wanted because of Kool. So fast forward from 91, when I first found them, all through the golden era of jungle, to December 2005. So at that time, I was just winding up. I'd been running Rinse as the pirate. And that had come to an end around about the December of 2005. So from putting the aerials up for Rinse for all that time, I'd become sort of, I wouldn't say friends with Eastman and Funky Flirt, because I only knew him like a little bit, but we used to share a roof. So just by default, Rinse were on the roof, Kool were on the roof. We used to have our aerials facing back to back. So I got to know them a little bit. So when the time was done at Rinse for me to leave, December 2005, I rung up Eastman because my dream was to be on Kool, and many years ago I did try. I sent tapes and tried, but I didn't get anywhere. Anyway, 2005 December, I rung up Eastman and said to him, East, I'm not anything to do with Rinse anymore. I've give all that up. I don't want to do the management thing. I just want to be a DJ. And he surprisingly said to me, you know what, the timing was perfect because Kool had just started switching on 24 hours a day, and they only had 3 DJs that were going through the day. They had Funky Flirt on in the morning, and then then Live-O was on, and then Spice was on after him, and they would cover from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock, and then the thing would start. They was only on during the weekday in the evenings. That's what, yeah. Then they went all day. So when I rang Eastman and said to him I wanted a show, and he was like, yeah. What day do you want? What time do you want? It blew me away because, like I say, it was my one of my lifehood ambitions was to be on Kool FM. And now, I remember I was in the post office van. I was working on the post office, and I was sitting at the top of Wellington Drive in Dagenham by the post box there, Burbrook Close, and I couldn't believe it. It was a moment I'll never ever forget when I got offered the show, and I chose Mondays 12 till 3 simply because Monday was the easiest day I could get away from work early. Being a postman, it was always a light day on a Monday, and I could have a little carve up and slip away. So I took Mondays 12 till 3, and that became Connoisseur Mondays. That was what it was going to be. So the first Kool studio that I come to was this place here. I didn't know anyone on Kool. It's mad, yeah. This is January now. January, I think it was January the 7th 2006 was the first show I did on Kool. I might be wrong there, it might have been January the 20th. That's not important, but it was January 2006. Now, people just think, this is funny, this is, because I'm so ingrained in this thing now and I know everyone and I'm about and all that, people just assume a lot of the time that it's always been like that. But the truth is, in January 2006, I didn't know anyone and no one knew me. Like, when I come onto Kool, I knew Eastman a little bit, I knew Flirt a little bit, and I knew one or two. When I say one or two others, I mean like Logan D. Yeah, that was it. I mean, I didn't know anyone. Seriously, I did not know anyone on the station, or in jungle drum and bass, or in old school. I was just a fan of all of them, and I'd come from the grime, garage, and all that background of pirate radio. And when I was a jungle DJ on pirate radio, I was a kid and no one gave a shit. So here we are. 2006 January, and I remember coming to the studio for the first time. I was on after Flirt. Flirt used to do Morning Glory back then, every weekday morning, and I remember just, it felt so surreal after all of that years, you know, listening to it and wanting to be on it and aspiring and looking up to all of these guys, that now I'm on after Funky Flirt, Big Bad Funky Flirt. Like, I listened to him all my life. From Weekend Rush days, I listened to Funky Flirt, Kool FM. Some of my best tapes, Funky Flirt, Shabba, Shocking, Skibber, them. Yeah, so now I'm sitting now. It's probably about 11, half 11. I'm on at 12 o'clock. Flirt's doing his morning show like normal, just being mental. And I'm just sitting there watching him, counting down the time. And it's funny because I wasn't nervous. Look, with your career, you don't go up in massive jumps. So by the time you get to somewhere, actually, that's a lie. In this day and age, you go up in massive jumps. But in the good old days, when it was proper, you gradually ascended. So by the time you get to somewhere, you're not as nervous as you think you would have been when you thought about it as a kid, because you're at that level. You know what I mean? You're ready to do that and make that move. So when my time come, I remember where the studio was. There was a mechanics next door, motor mechanics, and obviously they knew what we was doing. They were friends of ours at the time, and I remember on that first show, Flirt had to get his car fixed. So as soon as he finished, he had to shoot off straight away into next door and sort some things out of his car. So I was on my own for about half hour, 45 minutes, and when I spoke on the mic, like, I remember the advert finished, and the first tune I played was Dillinger, Sovereign Melody. And I played that because it's a proper Kool FM anthem. It reminded me of Kool. It always has done. So I thought, what better tune to start than a tune that I played because of Kool FM. But I'll tell you what was mad. When I was looking at the microphone, when the ads were finishing, I was just looking at the mic. And of course, it's not the same mic they've used since 1991, but it is the Kool FM mic. And it felt about size of a medicine ball, because I'm just looking at it thinking of all the legends, all the people that I grew up listening to, that have said Kool FM 945, Kool FM 946, Kool London, all the different versions over the years. Every MC that I have loved and every DJ that I have loved have all said that down that same microphone, and now it was my turn, you know what I mean? And then you know, did the first show, and I'll tell other stories from this studio and of Kool FM. I just wanted to give you, because we're at the studio where it started, I wanted to give you a little bit of a run up to the quick story I'm going to tell about this particular studio. But there's loads. There's a bag of stories associated to Kool FM and of course Jungle Fever and all the stuff I did while I spent my time out. So yeah, big up Eastman and Susie G. But East, if you ever watch this, mate, like, if I could have ever done one thing in my life, more than playing on any stage, and honestly, if you'd have offered me the Pyramid stage at Glastonbury or to be on Kool FM, I would have chose Kool FM. I always said, if you'd have offered me in the 90s a show on Radio 1 or a show on Kool FM, I would have laughed at the audacity of offering me a show on Radio 1 over Kool FM, the cheek of it. So to get there eventually, even though it took me a long time, it was a huge moment for me. Massive, massive milestone in my career. And the springboard that really took me onto everything that I've ever done since. It started in that studio in January 2006. All the stuff I've done before it helped me to give me a foundation and a base to be who I wanted to be. But that studio and that radio station, that gave me everything that came afterwards. So yeah, so this particular story. Now, I've been on Kool for about couple of years by now, maybe 3. I was on there for 5 years before I went back to Rinse. Rinse got their license and I went back to do the show that I still do now, Run Come Follow Fridays. We'd been here for a couple of years. My show was established. I'd started to get about and knew loads of people by now, and was getting the odd bit of work here and there. Everything was nice. So I was doing my Monday show, but I also used to do a different show as well, like a talk show thing. And on this particular day, it was a Thursday, I used to do that. And on this particular day, Chef was there. Chef, you know the story I'm going to tell now because I've mentioned your name. And a couple of other people, and we had a special guest on the show that day. Now, this guest on the show, he was a notorious South London gangster, yeah? Not Dave Courtney, just because I know the obvious one you're going to think he's that. R.I.P. Dave Courtney, a friend of mine, and a good guy, and done a lot of nice things for me and Sarah in the time we knew him. So, but not that notorious South London gangster, because that's probably the one you'd think because of the music link that Dave had, but it wasn't. I'm not going to say his name because I don't know what he's up to at the moment, and I don't want to get myself into something that I can't handle, to be honest with you. But anyway, this guy, what happened was, he's a huge Kool FM listener, he's a huge raver, even though he's right in the mix with the street stuff. A massive fan of jungle drum and bass, out and about. When he's out and about, this guy. So now, previous to this moment, he'd been in prison, right? And he used to ring the show every week. He'd ring my Monday show and he'd ring up the other show. And he'd always be listening, and you know, he was full of, to me personally, like, I know he's got a different world that he lives in, but to me personally, and when I got with Sarah, who's sitting next to me, he only ever showed me love and respect, and I wish I could say his name without upsetting anyone, but I don't want to. But he'll know who he is, and other people will know who he is, and he was only ever cool to me, and he's only ever been cool to me. So big up you, yeah. But anyway, when he come out of prison at this particular time, he said, I want to come up on the show and spread some light and love. Now, this is coming from someone who's walked the walk, you know what I mean? He's done everything, shotguns, sold the drugs, been to prison, been a bad person. But at that point, he was ready to try and change his life. And we thought, what better person to come up and try and talk to the youth than someone who they all would know his name. If they're from the road, they would know his name. And even if they don't know his name, just the stories he can tell. You can tell they're not fabricated. He ain't got to make them up. He's got the stories. So we thought, yeah, great. We did the show. He comes up, and the show was going great. Yeah, he was saying all the things you would want someone like that to say. He was saying all the right things you would want someone like that to say, and none of the wrong things. So it was great. The phone line, the messages, it was all a really lovely, positive thing. Anyway, if I remember correctly, Chef turned up later on into the show. Now, that slope we've just looked down through that little gap in the fence there, that's a little slope that goes round before the right. When Chef walked in, he said to me, there's a white transit van parked on that slope, yeah? And there's 3 geezers in the front. I think they're DTI. So obviously we're in the studio, we're live on air at the moment. Now, the first thing you think of, luckily I've run pirates in the past and I've been so ingrained in it, I'm not just a pirate DJ that doesn't know what to do or might panic or whatever. So the first thing you got to think of is, don't panic. That's the first thing you got to think of. Now, they're out there, we're in now. How can we get out of here, save everything at the radio, all at the same time, lose no equipment, and get past them, because there's only one way in and one way out of that place there, yeah? How can we get out without getting noticed? So I said to Chef, let me go and case out the joint, but in the meantime, start packing up all the studio equipment that won't take us off air. So all the excess stuff, not the link box, not the I'll tell you what we did. We put a tape on, because the ads used to be on tape in them days. We put a tape on of the ads, so it sounded like we were still in the studio, just going to go for an ad break, and packed up all the other equipment. And basically, our friends at the garage next door knew what we were doing. So what we did was we took Chef and the others got all the equipment out, put it in the garage next door, and the garage put it in the roof. So all that was literally left in there was the link box and a tape deck and some wires and us lot. And then I said to him, look, you lot wait in here, let me just go and assess what's going on. So I come out the studio and I walked up the hill and I walked back past them, and sure enough, it was Peter Goodings, it was the man himself, and a couple of other guys, DTI. They're sitting right outside the Kool FM studio. Obviously, we're going to get raided. Now, the funny thing is, when I walked out and walked past them, yeah, now, what I had to make it look like I was just walking out, because You know, I'm assuming they know my face and my name because I'm on record as doing other stations in the past, and around that time, off the back of the rinse stuff, things were pretty hot. But they may not, yeah, they may not have expected me to walk out of this place. I don't know. But when I walked past the van, yeah, they didn't bat an eyelid. They didn't even look at me, which struck me as really weird. But then I thought maybe they're playing the same game as me. You know what I mean? Maybe they're playing the old "here he comes, let's pretend because we want to go in there and there's other people in there, so if we pretend we don't know him, we won't spook them." So that's what I thought. So I walked up to where the car is, I walked round the back, and then I come back again, and I walked back in, and I said to the others, they're out there, but all the equipment's gone now. All we can do, there's only one way out, all we can do is leave, bowl past them. If they say anything, we'll just say fuck off, we don't know what you're talking about, just keep it moving and keep walking. But what we were really worried about was if we got nicked. We're in there with this guy. Now, pirate radio already has a bad enough name a lot of the time, and most of it is either completely false and fabricated, or it's unjust, you know what I mean? We're not all drug dealing, fucking gun-toting lunatics that want to break the law and kill the world. Like, most of us just want to play music, and pirate radio was our buzz. That was the basic. We paid for it ourselves out of going to work, or the DJs paying for subs. There was no big drug fund paying for any of it. But we've got a notorious South London gangbanger in the studio with us, and as much as we're going to say to them, yeah, no, honestly, he was up here really doing some good, some really positive, like, it's just so easy to tie that in with all the stuff that we're trying to not be associated with, even though we're telling the truth. So yeah, it's bad enough getting raided at the best of times, but I'm telling you, the minute they run his name through that computer, mate, we're going to have SO19 down here and all sorts. It's going to be like a scene from The Bill. But what could we do? We're stuck there. We can't just live in the studio for the rest of our life. So we've got all the equipment out. We're going to just go for it. We come out of the studio, done a left, bowled up, all of us. There was about 4 or 5 of us. Walked straight past the van on the hill. They didn't bat an eyelid again. They didn't even look at us. They was talking, looking at something. Not a thing. Didn't bat an eyelid. Did not even give us cut eye or nothing. We got to the top of here and we walked out of here behind where we are now, expecting the van to appear or something. I've got the radio because by them times there we had the internet stream was up and running, so I've got the radio on my phone, and nothing's been cut off. The ads are still playing. We go around onto the main road, ads are still playing, nothing's happened. Now, you might remember from a previous episode when I told you about the Gascoigne stuff, when the DTI used to work their way from different areas from Essex inwards towards London. Now, what happened was, obviously, even though I wasn't on rinse at the time, all the pirates talked to each other. Unbeknown to us, now let me turn this camera around, yeah? Unbeknown to us, yeah? So we're in the studio here on the right. The DTI are sitting here just on the left, just like kind of there. We've had to walk from round there, past them up to this road here where we are. Unbeknown to us, Rinse FM were broadcasting from a studio, and they were using a midpoint. Now, let me turn this back round again. A midpoint is another way of throwing the DTI off your thing. So you've got a studio and an aerial. Now, usually you would broadcast from your studio to your aerial, then out to London. But as things sort of like progressed, we started to get good at things. You'd have a midpoint, so you'd send your signal to a midpoint, then from the midpoint maybe to another midpoint, then to your aerial, then out. So that means there's more places for them to find when they're going to raid you. We didn't know, let me turn that around again, that basically Kool FM had a midpoint. You can't see it, but it's just on the other side of that building. They had a midpoint over there. Now, let me turn it around. So the DTI were actually sitting there waiting to raid what they thought was Genius's Rinse FM studio or transmitter point, which was actually a midpoint. But what the DTI didn't know, their vantage point to sit and assess this before they went and did the do was right outside the Kool FM studio, and they didn't even know it, and at the time we didn't even know it. It was only when Rinse got switched off. Obviously they've spoke to, are you lot still on? And we're still on. The ads are still playing in the studio. We've gone now, we've gone home. And it was only like half hour, an hour later that G lost his midpoint that we found out that they were literally sitting outside our studio. They could have had our studio so easy. They was closer to that, and the studio, if it's like a game of chess, that's checkmate. When they've got your studio, that's checkmate. When they take your midpoint, that's like nicking a pawn off the board. So they were so close yet so far away. And it's just a funny old story, do you know what I mean? I think it's the closest I've ever been to getting raided without actually getting raided. And the mad thing is, we knew they were there, they didn't know we were there, and the joke of it is none of us was there for each other anyway, so it was all complete, and we could have just stayed on and finished the show. But anyway, that was the story of this. We used to call this the Bow Studios, the Bromley By Bow Studios, the Canal Studios, because there's a little canal down there. But it's a shame I can't get round there. I actually thought that was still working businesses, and I've drove over here to have a, well, we're over here anyway, but I've drove in to have a look. But yeah, anyway, that was 2006, 7, 8, yeah, around about that era. Kool FM original studio, the first studio that I played in when I got my show on Kool. So yeah, listen guys, thank you as always for watching. I'll catch you on the next Rave Diaries. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to check the other channel as well, the Run Come Follow Uncle Doug's. Peace and love to you all. We are out of here before I get hit by this geezer in the mix-it van.